Picture this. You are jolted awake before dawn by the distant clash of steel and a woman's scream carried over the foggy fields. The sound is sharp, almost inhuman, tearing through the cold, damp air. Your breath catches in your throat as your fingers clutch rough homespun blankets, heart pounding so loud you're sure it will give you away. Shadows flicker on the wall, torchlight, not sunrise. And then, the thunder of boots, the crash of wood splitting, the sickly stench of fear mingling with burning thatch. The world you knew, its gentle routines, its laughter, the warmth of your mother's embrace, vanishes in the blink of an eye. Rough hands drag you from the darkness, the taste of blood already on your tongue where you bit it, refusing to scream. You are thrown to the mud, cold stone scraping your knees, surrounded by men whose faces are painted with streaks of ash and iron. They speak a tongue you barely recognize, harsh, sharp as the edge of the blades pressed to your back. One word you do understand. Thrall. There is no time to plead, no time to beg for mercy. The warriors have no patience for tears. Their eyes flick over you with an appraisal that strips you bare, measuring not your worth as a person, but as a prize. Behind you, your village burns, homes collapsing, animals screaming in panic, bodies motionless in the grass. Someone tries to run and falls, cut down in a blur of steel. In that moment, you understand. The rules have changed. You are no longer a daughter, a sister, a wife. You are spoils of war. But here's where the nightmare sharpens. You've heard stories of Viking raids, tales whispered around hearth fires, half believed, half feared. Wild men from the north, their longships slicing through morning mist, their fury unstoppable. But what you haven't been told is what happens after the screaming fades, when the torches move on and the village lies in ruin. What you don't know, what no one tells you, is that for women, the worst horrors begin after the battle ends. Think the Vikings were just brutal raiders drunk on blood and glory? Think again. For them, the real plunder wasn't just gold or livestock, it was flesh. Capturing women was strategy, economy, and ritual all rolled into one. Historical records reveal that in the 9th century, across Northumbria, Francia, even deep into Slavic lands, entire villages vanished not just into fire and ash, but into the hulls of longships, alive, terrified, and chained together. You are not the exception. You are the product of a system older than any single raid. You are a name scratched onto a tally, a unit of currency in a trade network that stretched from the icy fjords to the bustling markets of Baghdad. Archaeological digs at Dublin and Hedeby unearthed iron shackles small enough for children. The Annals of Saint. Bertine described the terror. The Northmen took many women captive, leading them away as thralls, their fate unknown. But this isn't just distant history. It's personal. Tonight, your fate has shifted from the familiar to the unimaginable, and you are helpless to shape what comes next. You are shoved into a line with the others, your hands bound, the cut of rope burning your wrists. Each step forward is a surrender of self. Your name, your language, your place in the world. Every movement is scrutinized by your captors, who choose the strong, the young, the beautiful for a purpose you can feel, but not yet comprehend. One of them, with a cloak of wolf fur and eyes as cold as the North Sea, grins and lifts your chin with the blade of his axe, turning your face to the flickering fire. The heat scorches your cheek, but it's the coldness in his gaze that makes you shiver. He speaks to the others, laughter rippling out, short, cruel, businesslike. In his world, your terror is routine. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. This isn't chaos. This is order, the kind of order that turns violence into ritual, suffering into commerce. Viking law codes, like the Gragas, spelled out the value of a woman, not as a person, but as a commodity. If you think this is an accident, think again. The sagas speak with a chilling detachment about women taken in raids, their names sometimes listed, more often forgotten. So-and-so was carried off, and she bore sons to her captor, as if forced motherhood was a footnote, not a life sentence. As dawn breaks, you are herded with the others toward the waiting longships. The sea wind bites, heavy with salt and threat, the decks slick with spray and something darker. The raiders chant, calling to gods you do not know, invoking victory and fate. The chains bite into your ankles as you stumble up the gangplank. There is no way back. Behind you, your home is nothing but smoke and memory. Ahead, only the unknown. You close your eyes, but sleep won't come. The voyage has just begun. What you don't realize yet is that this is only the first circle of a much deeper hell. The Northman's world is a machine designed to break and repurpose the human spirit. The further you are taken from home, the more you are remade. Not by choice, but by force, law, and a culture that sees you as a vessel for their ambitions. You feel the eyes of your captors and of the gods they worship upon you as the ship shoves off. Somewhere, far away, your mother's voice is fading into silence. And now, with every wave that slaps against the hull, you are carried deeper into a world that was built on the bones and tears of the forgotten. Your story isn't over. It's only just beginning. And what awaits you beyond the horizon will shatter everything you thought you knew about survival, dignity, and the limits of human cruelty. The wind shrieks across the open sea, lashing your face with cold spray and salt that bites at every cut and bruise. Bound at the wrists and ankles, you huddle with a cluster of women on the floor of the longship, wood slick beneath your knees, the stench of wet wool and fear so strong it turns your stomach. Every time you glance up, you meet the eyes of your captors, hard, pale, and utterly unreadable. They speak little except to bark orders or laugh among themselves. At night, as the ship rocks under a sky so black it seems to swallow hope itself, you listen to the muffled sobs of the girl beside you, her hair matted with blood. You want to comfort her, but your own voice is lost, locked somewhere deep inside, trapped with everything you used to be. As the hours crawl by, time becomes elastic, days blurring into nights, hunger gnawing at your insides, lips cracked and raw from thirst. Sometimes a captor shoves a crust of bread into your hands. Sometimes you are ignored entirely, left to fade into the background of the living cargo. But here's where the ordeal deepens. You realize you're being watched, not as a person, but as inventory. Their gazes flick over your arms, your face, the curve of your back, evaluating you with the cold detachment of men inspecting livestock before a market. You overhear snatches of speech, names of far-off places, Dublin, Hedeby, Birka. The words are foreign, but the meaning is clear. You are a commodity, a line in an account book. When at last land appears, it's not home. It's a muddy shore thronged with strangers. You're forced off the ship, legs trembling, cold water soaking your feet as you're herded toward a cluster of tents and wooden stalls. The air is thick with voices, unfamiliar languages rising and falling in a marketplace that smells of mud, sweat, and rotting fish. Here, the process of erasure becomes public. Viking traders, some with coins sewn into their beards, some wearing iron pendants shaped like hammers or crosses, examine you and the other captives as if shopping for tools. Fingers prod your arms, twist your hair, pry open your mouth to check your teeth. Some laugh at your tears. Others haggle over your price with the practiced monotony of men who have done this 1,000 times before. But here's where it gets worse. You are made to stand on a raised platform exposed before a crowd that stares up at you with a mixture of calculation and hunger. A man with a scar down his cheek shouts your description in a language you only half understand. Your height, your hair, the color of your eyes. Bids fly back and forth. One trader gestures to your wrists as if your hands are the only part of you that matters. The crowd shifts, jostling for a better view. In that moment, you feel your identity dissolve, piece by piece, until you are nothing but a body, an object, a living prize to be claimed by the highest offer. Historical accounts from the annals of Saint Bertin and the writings of Ibn Fadlan describe these markets in brutal detail. Slavic, Anglo-Saxon, and Celtic women lined up in fetters, auctioned under open sky while local chieftains and foreign traders placed bids. Archaeological digs in Dublin uncovered iron shackles, some twisted, some rusted through, alongside hoards of Arabic silver coins, evidence of a transcontinental trade in suffering. The Dublin slave markets alone processed thousands of captives every year, their names never recorded, their fates vanishing into the mist of history. You watch as a woman next to you is sold to a burly man in furs. Her head drops, shoulders shaking, as she is led away. The crowd barely notices. You are next. The trader lifts your chin, turning your face from side to side for all to see. His grip is hard, his expression bored. He calls out a number, and another voice, a woman's, sharp and certain, responds. A wealthy Norse matron, her cloak fastened with a silver brooch, steps forward. Her eyes linger on you, appraising, perhaps remembering when she too was once for sale. She nods, and just like that, your fate is sealed with a handful of coins. You are pulled from the platform, shackles exchanged for a rope leash, your wrists burning. The matron's household servant leads you through the crowd. The roar of the market fades behind you, replaced by a sickening emptiness. You are not a person. You are property. But the horror isn't finished. As you are marched through the muddy streets, men and women pause to stare, some whispering, some smirking, some merely indifferent. You see children playing in the gutter, glancing up with wide eyes. Will they remember your face? Will anyone? Here's what most people never realize about the Viking world. These markets were not rare exceptions. They were routine, legal, organized, accepted. Law codes from the period, like the Norwegian Frostething law, defined the prices of thralls by age, sex, and strength. One passage reads, "A healthy young woman fetches more than 2 old men." No words for kindness or mercy, just price. By dusk, you reach the matron's home. A longhouse thick with smoke and animal skins, the air inside heavy with the scent of boiled meat and wet dog. You are unchained, pushed into a corner, warned not to speak. The matron's children stare at you with open curiosity, half afraid, half fascinated. You realize that to them, you are as much a part of the furniture as the hearth or the goats in the yard. And yet, somewhere deep within you, a question smolders. Is this all there is? Is there any way back from this? The Vikings called their thralls trell, rootless, voiceless, marked forever by the moment their freedom was stolen. You wonder if your own name will survive, even in a whisper. But before you can dwell on it, a new command comes. You are to serve at the table, to sweep the floor, to tend the fires. Obedience is expected. Resistance will be punished. Your hands tremble as you grip a wooden bowl, every movement watched by eyes waiting for you to stumble. The matron's voice rings out, a warning, or perhaps just a reminder of your place. Now that you've tasted this first, shattering descent into captivity, you're beginning to see how Viking society depended on the systematic erasure of those it conquered. If uncovering these lost voices of history changes how you see the past, subscribe now to keep discovering the truths most history books refuse to tell. The next chapter will reveal what your fate would be after the sale, how the world of your captors turns daily survival into a new form of battle, and how even the faintest act of resistance can bring consequences beyond imagining. What comes next will shatter any hope you had that this nightmare could be temporary. The smell of the longhouse never leaves you. Smoke from the fire pit, sour ale, damp wool, the oily tang of animal fat smeared on wooden beams. Here, beneath a sagging roof, you begin to learn the rules of your new existence. You are not addressed by name, only by commands. Girl. Trell. You. The words land like blows, stripping you further of everything familiar. Each dawn, you rise before the household, your feet already aching from the day before, fingers raw from scrubbing floors that are never clean enough. Eyes follow you everywhere, not just the matrons but those of her eldest son, silent and watchful, and of servants who avert their gaze as if your presence might be contagious. Your clothing has changed too. Homespun wool, rough and unbleached, marked with a patch that proclaims your status. Your hair is cut short, a Viking custom for female thralls, robbing you of the pride you once took in its length. You are set to tasks you've never done, feeding pigs, hauling water from the well, kneading dough until your arms burn. The matron is always near, her voice sharp as a blade. Any mistake, a cracked pot, a spill, draws swift rebuke. She warns you, voice icy with certainty, that punishment for disobedience is swift and severe. A trell who cannot work will be beaten. A trell who tries to run will be worse than dead. The threat lingers in the air, heavier than smoke. But here's where it gets worse. It's not just labor that has become your life, but humiliation woven into every act. You are ordered to stand in the center of the hall during mealtimes, on display for the family and guests. Laughter sometimes breaks out. Your accent, your clumsy attempts to follow unfamiliar customs. When you serve food, a guest might yank your arm, spilling stew across your tunic, or comment loudly on your looks. If you flinch, the matron's glare warns you to hide every sign of pain or pride. In the Viking world, thralls are reminders of power, living proof of conquest, meant to be visible, vulnerable, and silent. Historical records from the sagas and laws like the Gragas make it clear. You are property. The Gragas declares, a man's thrall is his to command, his to punish, his to sell. There are rules for what may be done to you, but none to protect you from cruelty. The price of your life is set by the market. Your dignity costs nothing. Some women are forced to stand with a scold's bridle, a metal mask or yoke as a public warning for answering back. Others are made to sit by the door during feasts, never joining, always watching, always other. Yet even this is only the surface. In private, the dangers multiply. The matron's son, emboldened by drink and power, corners you by the fire one night. His voice is low, words slurred, breath sour. He demands your obedience with a smile that chills your bones. You remember the warnings. Resist, and you are beaten. Comply, and you lose another piece of yourself. Your body now is not your own. In Viking society, the law is clear. A master's rights over a thrall are near total. If you bear a child, the child is born a slave, property to be traded or kept according to the owner's will. But here's where the horror sharpens. There is no protection. If you try to tell the matron, she dismisses you with a sneer. If you fight back, the punishment is public. Some thralls are stripped and whipped before the whole household, their screams proof of order. Others simply vanish, replaced by fresh captives when new raids bring in more flesh. Archaeological evidence from Norse settlements, skeletons showing healed fractures, iron shackles buried with bodies, tells a story the sagas leave unspoken. Survival depends on silence. You learn to move quietly, to anticipate moods, to fade into the background. You memorize the matron's schedule, avoid the son when he drinks, and trade whispered warnings with the kitchen girl, herself a Finn taken years ago, now more shadow than person. The smallest acts of defiance are dangerous. Hiding scraps of food, comforting a crying child, glancing up too quickly. Every risk carries the memory of what happened to the last woman who dared to escape. They found her body by the river, a warning etched into every bruise. But the system is more than violence. It is legal, ritualized, and relentless. The Frostathing law declares, if a thrall runs, she shall be returned and punished. If she is harbored, the harborer shall pay compensation. There are fines for killing a slave, less than the price of a good horse. Your owner's rights are written into every contract, every saga. Let none pity the fate of a thrall, for it is ordained by the gods and by men, says a chieftain in the Laxdela saga. The brutality is normalized, expected, invisible to those who benefit. But here's what will keep you awake at night. This world does not remember the names of the women it breaks. Your name has vanished, replaced by a word that means nothing to you. Your memories of home blur, softened by exhaustion and fear. You catch yourself thinking of the longhouse as your place, dreading the loss of even this small corner of existence. The cycle of dawns and dusks becomes your only anchor, the rhythm of labor a thin defense against despair. Still, something inside you resists complete erasure. You cling to small secret acts, a lullaby sung silently while you sweep, a stone hidden in your pocket from the ruins of your old village. But you know that these fragments could be stolen at any moment. In this world, survival is an act of endurance, memory an act of rebellion, and hope a forbidden luxury. What you don't realize yet is that the system can turn even darker. If your owner dies, your fate depends on the whims of heirs. You might be inherited, sold again, or sacrificed in a ritual killing to join your master in the afterlife. In the Oseberg ship burial, archaeologists found the bones of women buried with noblewomen, thralls, killed to serve beyond the grave. The possibility haunts every sleepless night. You lie awake, heart pounding, listening to the distant howl of wolves, wondering if anyone beyond these walls remembers you as anything but property. Each day, you fight to preserve a piece of yourself, even as Viking law and custom seek to strip you bare. The world around you is a machine built for erasure, but you are not yet entirely lost. The next ordeal will push you further, testing what survival really means when your body, your mind, and your very identity are not your own. Tomorrow you will wake to a new threat, one that will make even the pain of servitude seem almost merciful by comparison. In this world, resistance is dangerous. But what happens when you can't, or won't, submit any longer? The answer is waiting in the darkness, more brutal than anything you have faced so far. Night comes quickly in the north. You lie in a corner of the longhouse, straw scratching your skin, the cold creeping under your thin blanket. Yet, sleep never comes easy. Not here, not anymore. Every creak of the timber, every drunken shout from the hearth, sends a shudder through your body. This is the new shape of your life. Waiting, always, for what might happen next. You know now that no one is coming to save you. Only you can reckon with what each night will demand. Sometimes it is the matron's son who staggers toward your pallet, his breath hot with ale and expectation. Sometimes it is a guest, wealthy, boastful, eager to test what he's been told is his right by conquest. There are nights when you are summoned with a single word, "Come," and you obey, because refusal is not an option. You've learned the patterns, the signs. You hope to make yourself small, invisible, unremarkable, but it never matters. In this house, in this world, you are always seen when you are wanted, and unseen the rest of the time. But here's where the horror deepens. In the Viking world, your suffering is not just the price of defeat, it is currency, a resource to be exploited. Marriage by capture is not a storybook legend, it is your reality. One day, you are summoned before the household, your hair braided in a style you do not know, your arms scrubbed raw until your skin burns. The matron presents you to a visiting trader as if offering a prized animal. He looks you over, nods, and the terms are agreed. There is no ceremony, no vows, no consent, only a transaction. You are handed to him, taken to his home, your existence signed away with a handful of silver rings. The law is clear, the sagas are blunt. A woman taken in war is a wife by right of arms, says the Njal's saga. Your captor is both husband and master. He may grant you a place at the hearth, give you clothing, even permit you to bear his name, but only if it pleases him. If you bear a child, the child belongs to him, as much a part of his household as his cattle or weapons. Sometimes the child is marked as free, sometimes as a thrall, depending on your master's mood or need for labor. But here is where the system tightens its grip. Motherhood, once sacred, is now just another tool. The other women in the household, wives, daughters, fellow thralls, watch you, some with pity, some with contempt, some with a wary solidarity born of shared suffering. You realize that you are expected to accept this fate, to endure, to provide new life for the family that owns you. Refusal is unthinkable. Obedience is demanded even in childbirth, your pain a private matter, your child's fate not yours to decide. Contemporary accounts confirm what the sagas only hint at. The Arab chronicler Ibn Fadlan, witnessing Viking markets along the Volga, wrote, "The Northmen bring slave women in droves, selling them openly, making no distinction between those taken in war and those born among them." Archaeological digs in Scandinavia and the British Isles have uncovered the bones of women with signs of repeated trauma, and the grave of a woman in burqa, buried with both child and iron shackles. Even in death, the boundary between mother and captive is blurred. Yet not all wounds are visible. Your body is changed, marked by violence, by childbirth, by endless labor. You find yourself drifting through days in a haze, emotions numbed to survive the onslaught. Sometimes you imagine running, but the memory of the riverbank and the woman who tried before you curdles hope into dread. Sometimes, though, in the darkness, you remember who you were, your mother's voice, your own language, the songs of your village. But here's where it gets worse. There is a ritual, whispered about among the thralls, called blotkona, the sacrifice woman. On rare nights, when the household seeks the god's favor, a captive woman may be offered as a blood price, her life traded for a good harvest or victory in battle. The sagas recount it with chilling brevity. The thrall woman was given to the gods, her cries pleasing to Odin. The others pretend not to hear, but you know. Every time you are summoned to the circle of standing stones, you wonder if this is the night your story ends. There are other horrors. If your owner dies, your fate is cast to the winds. You may be inherited, like a tool or a cloak, passed to a new household where no one knows your language or your pain. You may be sold again, sent to market, appraised for your youth or your skill at weaving, your ability to bear children. Or, worst of all, you may be chosen to follow your master into death. The Oseberg ship burial tells its own silent truth. 2 women buried with the queen, their bones marked by violence. Were they loyal servants, or offerings to ease her passage into the afterlife? You begin to sense that the violence is not just personal, it is institutional, systematic, accepted by law and custom. The Laxdæla saga describes how a captured woman bore sons to her master, and they grew to be mighty men, never knowing their mother's name. The Irish annals record whole villages vanished, their women and children lost across the sea, never to return. The world around you is built on forgetting. Your suffering, your name, your very existence. Yet, even here, a glimmer of resistance survives. Among the thralls, you exchange secret glances, share stolen moments, whisper your real names when no one is listening. Sometimes you risk a song from your homeland, sung so softly only those closest can hear. In these small acts, you carve out a space for yourself, however fleeting, however fragile. But you know that every day is a gamble, every act of memory a risk, every hope for dignity shadowed by the next command, the next sale, the next ritual. You have learned that in the Viking world, the line between victim and survivor is paper thin. Every breath is a negotiation, every kindness comes at a price, and every new day brings a fresh ordeal, a new test of how much you can bear before you disappear, not just from this world, but from history itself. What you do not know is that even the faintest spark of resistance can bring consequences beyond imagining. In this place, the greatest danger is not death, but the slow, deliberate erasure of self, a fate that may be harder to endure than any pain of the body. The nightmare is not yet finished. The coming trial will force you to choose, compliance or rebellion, silence or defiance. And the cost, whatever you decide, will be paid in blood, memory, and the currency of survival. There are nights when the world outside the longhouse freezes solid and all you have is your own breath, whispering across your hands, willing yourself to remember you are still alive. You watch the hearth burn low, embers pulsing like the memory of your old life, and you weigh the risks of hope. You have seen what happens to those who try to escape, how the village gathers by torchlight, how the body is displayed as warning. You have also seen what happens to those who surrender completely. Their eyes go dull, their voices vanish, and eventually they become part of the walls, as invisible as the smoke. But even in this place, resistance endures. Quiet, desperate, sometimes reckless. You have learned to hide scraps of bread in your sleeve, to barter whispered secrets with the other thralls, to pass warnings in the glances that dart across the hearth. There is a language beneath the language, a code of survival written in silence. Once a girl from the east managed to slip away at dawn, vanishing into the pine forest before anyone could stop her. For days you heard the matron curse her name and watched the men search with dogs, their anger a fire that threatened to consume you all. When she was finally found, shivering and starved, her punishment was swift. A public whipping in the snow, blood splattering across the white, her screams echoing in the valley. Here's where it gets worse. Survival sometimes means complicity. You learn to smile at the matron's jokes, to thank the master for crusts of bread, to keep your head down even when shame burns inside you. Some thralls become trusted enough to run errands to the market or watch over the children. These tiny privileges come at a cost. If one thrall runs, all are punished. The bond of shared suffering is fragile. Sometimes it splinters under pressure, trust breaking as easily as ice on the river. The sagas do not speak of this. The slow, grinding erosion of faith, the isolation that turns every woman's mind into a secret battleground. Yet even here, flickers of agency survive. In rare moments, a thrall gains her freedom. Through a master's whim, a lucky marriage, or the accumulation of small acts of service over years. The Gragas Law Codex records the process. If a thrall is freed, she shall be given a name, a cloak, and a place at the hearth. But for most, this hope is a cruel mirage. More often, you watch as women age into their role. Hands twisted by cold, backs bent from endless labor, eyes forever scanning the horizon for some sign of change. Archaeological finds whisper the truth. In the grave fields outside Birka and Dublin, skeletons of women show bones rebroken and healed, iron shackles still circling fragile ankles. Some are buried beside Norse women, marked as household, while others are laid alone, nameless. Historical accounts describe the rare revolt: a kitchen fire set ablaze in Hedeby, a poisoning in York, a band of thralls slipping away under cover of darkness. Most are caught. Some vanish for good, their names becoming only a rumor passed between the oldest women. But here's the heart of it. Resistance is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's the stubborn will to survive, to remember your own name, to refuse complete erasure. You teach the youngest girls words from your childhood. You hide a stone in your apron, smooth and dark, a talisman from your lost home. On cold mornings, you risk a joke, a memory, a forbidden song. Every small act is a wager. Will this draw the matron's wrath, or will it pass unnoticed? Yet the psychological toll is relentless. The line between hope and despair blurs with each season. You watch the household's freeborn children grow tall and strong, while your own body bears the scars of use and the passage of years. Sometimes, in the hush before dawn, you wonder if you still exist outside these walls, if anyone far away still whispers your name. You force yourself to remember. You are not nothing. You are not a beast. Even now, as another winter closes in, you carve your name with a splinter of bone into the underside of the sleeping bench, a mark, however small, that you were here, that you endured. But here's where it gets cruelest. For every woman who resists, dozens more are broken, their stories swallowed by the churn of daily survival. The law, the sagas, the markets all conspire to erase you. Yet, somewhere in the future, a scholar sifts earth and finds your mark, a fragment of bone, a thread of cloth. The world has changed, but the scars linger. The legacy you leave is not one of grand rebellion, but of endurance. Fragments of identity weathered, but unextinguished. The final test is yet to come. When the world demands not just your labor or your body, but your very self, when even the smallest defiance risks utter destruction, will you still choose to fight for what remains inside you? Or will you at last surrender the last piece of your memory to the darkness? The answer waits at the end of this ordeal, a question carved into the bones of every woman who vanished into the north. You wake one morning to the sound of shouting, urgent, fearful, different from the daily commands. Smoke pours from the roof beams and the matron's sons rush about, blades drawn. A rival clan has come for revenge, or perhaps it's only bandits. You clutch the sleeping bench, breath caught in your throat, watching as violence tears through the longhouse. In these moments the old order collapses, and for an instant, fate hangs loose. You could run, you could fight, you could be killed, you could be taken yet again. Your body remembers all the drills of subservience, but your mind howls with one desperate thought: not again. This is the world's most bitter truth. There is no safety here, only the next ordeal. When the raiders are gone, you are counted again, like sheep, like cattle. The matron's household survives, but several thralls do not. Their bodies are dragged out, stripped of jewelry and cloth, their names lost even before the grave is dug. And in that moment, you realize what the chronicles never say. The violence isn't rare or extraordinary. It's the foundation of everything around you, woven into daily life as common as bread or snow. Here's where the horror finally peaks. Years pass, and with them, your body becomes a ledger of violence. Scars along your forearms, teeth knocked loose, the limp from a winter fall that never healed right. You have survived childbirth, hunger, cold, and the caprice of owners. But there is a darker reckoning. In the far fields, workers digging a new well find a pit. The soil is thick with bones, small and large, men and women, children too. Iron rings circle some wrists, bits of colored beads tangled in hair. The villagers know what they have found and what it means. You are told to forget, to keep working. But the image burns behind your eyes. You are not the first. You will not be the last. Documentary anchors multiply. In 2012, archaeologists at Sandbyborg, Sweden, uncovered mass graves of women and children, their deaths sudden and brutal. At Birka and Dublin, entire layers of female skeletons bear marks of restraint, trauma, and sometimes deliberate killing. The law codes don't hide it. The Gulathing law, 11th century, permitted the ritual sacrifice of thralls upon a lord's death, that his house may be well served in the land of the dead. In this world, your value is what can be taken from you, in life or death. But the real horror is the normalization. You hear the matron lecture her daughter, "You are free because you were born so. Never forget what the gods allow for those who are not." You see children play slave market with dolls, reenacting the auction block. The world accepts all this as natural, inevitable. And you, caught in the cycle, sometimes catch yourself thinking the same. Resistance slips away, not with a scream, but with a slow, tired sigh. Yet even now, fragments of you remain. There are moments, at the riverbank, in the hush of early spring, when you dare to say your real name under your breath just once. You find a patch of wildflowers blooming in the ashes and remember that beauty exists, even here. Sometimes you comfort a new captive, whispering stories of a world before chains. Small acts, unnoticed by the masters, keep the flame alive. You know, with a secret certainty, that you are more than what has been done to you. the story doesn't end with you. In centuries to come, the saga writers and skalds will remember the great battles and the names of kings. But your story, your true story, will only be pieced together from bones in the ground, scars in the earth, faint lines carved into a sleeping bench. The legacy of the women who endured Viking captivity lives on, not as a tale of glory, but as a silent indictment of every system built on suffering. Step back now. Picture the world that came after. The endless Viking nostalgia, horned helmets at festivals, tales of adventure scrubbed clean of what you endured. Imagine what is lost when a story becomes only a myth, stripped of blood and memory. Reflect on the scars passed down, the silence in the history books, the women erased except for the artifacts they left behind. Yet in every truth recovered by the spade or the pen, a piece of your voice returns. You have witnessed what most never will, the reality behind the legend. You know now that the price of empire is always paid in bodies and silence, that survival means refusing to disappear, even when the world insists you are nothing. Your story is an act of defiance. Your memory, preserved in the earth and in every retelling, is a warning and a testament that no civilization can truly erase the truth of its victims. If seeing the real fate of Viking captives has transformed your understanding of history, hit subscribe now. You'll keep learning the truths that were meant to be forgotten, and together we will remember the stories that deserve to be told, honoring the endurance and courage that echo through centuries of silence.